really great to be here and to feel to be part of a revolution, particularly in Poland. And maybe that's going back to my own little memories, because the first time I was in Poland was in 1986, and it looked very different from today. And I congratulate you. And I think we want to make this happen, the clean mobility and probably also the quiet mobility, as the minister was saying this morning, which I liked very much. But that's not easy, because as everybody before has been saying, there's so many different things that need to change at the same time. And I think this little graph tries to depict that. So it's the politicians that will have to do their bit, it's industry that will have to do their bit, it's the consumer, it's the cities, it's the regions. So everybody will have to work hand in glove, because otherwise that revolution is not going to happen. So what can we do at the European level? Europe, that is 500 million people, 500 million consumers, a huge market, something that looks interesting to companies like TAURON, like VW, like others who are here in the business. And what we want in Europe is clean mobility. And we came with different packages of legislation in order to make this happen, because it's not going to happen on its own like manna falling from heaven. So there is the infrastructure where something needs to be done. There is the clean fuels, the electricity that needs to be supported, because it's the way on how we produce electricity that needs to change if mobility wants to become clean mobility. And we have the Renewables Energy Directive, which gives particular incentives for electricity. But also in terms of giving favors to different cars. Norway was mentioned as an example. We plan this also in Europe. It's called the Eurovignette, and it will allow governments to differentiate between clean and not so clean vehicles on the roads and charge them. So that's the first package that came out in 2017. We came in 2017 with a second package, and that also looks at the batteries. That is something that is essential in order to get the car moving. And I think many people have been saying in Europe we are a little bit falling behind. It's our South Asian partners that are moving ahead faster. Therefore, we try from the Commission to say we need to have an alliance where we bring together all the companies which we have in Europe to move forward on the batteries front. And it's not only looking at the next generation of batteries that we need to look at, but also how can we get cell production into Europe. Because many workers fear that they might lose their job if we move to the electric engine. But if we get the cell production, of course, into Europe, we will have more jobs. So the batteries initiative is something that we will take ahead in the coming years in Europe, bringing the private sector together, bringing academia, research together to really make it happen. Governments need to do something, but very often they are hampered. And we have the Clean Vehicles Directive, which also makes it possible to give advantages to clean cars when we procure vehicles for the cities, for the communes, the public authorities that are there. And then what I'm particularly working on is also the alternative fuels infrastructure. The colleagues from VW were saying this morning, without the charging infrastructure, it's just not going to happen. And we want, of course, to drive not only from Katowice to Krakow, but we also want to drive maybe from Katowice to Lisbon. And there the infrastructure needs to be there to be able to take our electric car from one place to the other. So we put in this year, in this alternative fuels infrastructure, 800 million euros in order to make it happen. Trans-European highways that are going to be electrified, where it is possible maybe also to put hydrogen into your fuel tank to fuel the fuel cells. Then the most important piece I'm working on at the moment is the car standards. So to make them cleaner, and the Commission has proposed to improve them within a period of 9 years by 30%, that vehicle efficiency. And this is being discussed at the moment between member states and the European Parliament. And on Monday I was in Strasbourg, and the committee there that is looking at this proposal said, no, 30% is too little. We want to go as far as minus 45% by the year 2030. So we are going to have a very interesting discussion between member states on one side and the parliament. Of course, there's a lot of anxiety around here. Are we going to make the change too hastily, too fast in the coming years? Can we manage this transition from one industry of the combustion engine to the electric engine? And from the side of the Commission, we think, yes, we can do that, but we have to do that in steps. So therefore, our proposal was 30% reduction. On top of that, this year, we also look at issues on trucks for the first time. We have never regulated trucks in Europe, and if you look outside, you will see there's already buses that will run electric, that will run on hydrogen, and you have seen a small transporter that can run electric. I was at a similar conference at the beginning of this year in January in Beijing, where the Chinese government was presenting their strategy for the future. And like here, it was the companies that were presenting their vehicles outside. And I think it was a little more impressive than what I see today outside here. There were many more trucks there. There were many more buses there. And I think that is one of the risks we have in Europe, that China might move faster than us. But I think we are getting there because everybody wants to work together. And I really appreciate what the minister this morning was saying on how this is going to be taken forward in Poland, because that will have to be a common effort. And that common effort, when it, for instance, comes to the cars proposal, will have to look at all the different angles. We can't make policies just looking at one angle. And just to give you that example of the cars proposal, we will have to look at the economics here. We'll have to look at the social effects. We will have to look at the environmental issues. And if we look at the economics, we know that the GDP with our proposal is going to increase by 6.8 billion euros. And that is because we get into new markets. We get into completely new production lines. So this proposal is going to give benefits to our economy. We are not overdoing it. We will save a lot in terms of fuels, something nobody has been talking about. 380 million tons of oil less in the period 2020 to 2040. That's 175 billion worth of euros, which consumers can spend on other things than importing oil. But they can spend it, for instance, on things that are produced in Europe. New technologies will reach the economies of scale. And I think that is something we are really looking at. And I think our colleague from Volkswagen this morning was also saying that you need to roll out in order to reduce the costs. So that is something that is going to happen in the coming years with our proposal. On the social side, look at the consumer. People will save money if they go to clean vehicles. We estimated it's per car 1,500 euros. And if you look at the truck side, it's even going to be better. And I don't have to say a lot about the environmental side, because we will also save a lot of carbon dioxide that will go into the atmosphere, so it will help battling climate change. I'm not going to go into the details on the trucks, just to say at the end what you take home is we try to support from our end this change, but we cannot do it alone. We will have to do it with member states, with the Polish government, and with all the other governments in the EU. We will have to do it together with regions. We'll have to do it together with municipalities, cities like Katowice that are progressive and moving forward this idea. And I think with all of that help from the government side, the industry, and I think we have seen that today, is taking up the challenge. No problem for them. Thank you very much.